I'd like to call this Cultural Resource Review Board meeting to order. Good afternoon. I'm going to start with roll call. Robert Olson.
Present.
Janet Jordan.
Here.
Christine Newman.
Here.
Susan Sheldrup.
Here.
Blair Knighting. Absent. And Dr. Keyes.
Here.
Here. Thank you. All right. Did you want to introduce Ms. Wright?
Sure, I can now.
Let's do
if you'd
that
like.
now.
Yeah, I'd like to introduce Megan Wright. She'll be fulfilling the role of Cultural Resource Review and Compliance for the county, as well as a CRRB liaison. She is a Flagler College alum and has experience with managing public advisory boards and was the cultural liaison for the Sitka tribe in Alaska. She also has a background in environmental compliance, and please provide her with guidance, contacts in the field, recommendations, upcoming conferences or training sessions. And we welcome Megan.
Yes, welcome.
So happy to be here.
Welcome,
Very
Ms.
happy to
Wright.
serve you all. Nice to meet you.
Okay.
Thank you. I'd like to read the Civility Clause public notice. The Cultural Resource Review Board serves as an advisory board which makes recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners. This is a properly noticed public meeting held in accordance with requirements of Florida law. Members of the public will be given reasonable opportunity to be heard on propositions before the board as those items are addressed on the agenda. For public comments on matters not being considered by the board today, a general public comment period will be provided to address the board on matters within its jurisdiction. Each person addressing the board shall limit comments to 3 minutes. Persons shall not address the board or any member thereof unless specifically recognized by the chairperson to do so. Once recognized, members of the public shall address their comments to the board as a whole. Public comment is intended for the board to hear from the public and shall not be considered an opportunity to demand immediate responses from the board or its members. Board members shall not engage in dialogue with persons making public comment unless the question or comment is directed through the chair or made with permission of the chair. We do have some agenda items. We have public hearing, right? 2 items, or actually 1 item today. So I will add that for those matters requiring a public hearing, speakers may offer sworn testimony. If they do not, the board can consider the fact that testimony is unsworn in determining the weight of truthfulness of the testimony. Any physical or documentary evidence presented during the public hearing, such as drawings, photographs, or written statements, will be retained by the staff as part of the record. Board members are reminded that at the beginning of each item requiring a public hearing, they should state whether or not they had any communication with any person regarding the substance of the item outside the formal hearing of the board. If such a communication occurred, the board member should then identify the persons involved in the material content of the communication. Right. I think the first item for any general public comment not on the agenda. And anyone wanting to say anything could take 3 minutes and do so. I'll open it to the floor and to, I think, the telephone line also.
Oh, my name is Dennis Latham,
Yes.
and
Mr.
I'd like
Slade.
to encourage y'all to encourage the county to reestablish the Cultural Resources Department in this building, which was cruelly and illegally abolished by the person in charge of, what do they call it? Growth management, which I think is an oxymoron. And what was done to Freya Asser was a civil rights violation. It was a sin, a crime, and a tort, and it was absolutely wrong. And I would encourage this board to make your views known. We've now got a brand new county commission, and we need to make sure that all the staff members and all the citizens in this county have their civil and constitutional rights respected and not neglected. It's been too long. Well, I've lived here 25 years on November 5th, and we were here about a couple months. When Brian walks in, computer room, and he announces, "It's crooked around here." He figured it out talking to locals and reading Folio Weekly. But I'm a candidate for District seat 1. And we need to have the county reestablish, we used to have a intergovernmental relations committee. And under Michael David Wanchett, who encumbered the position of county administrator for 12 years, he abolished it. He didn't give a reason. Government agencies need to talk to each other. They need to listen to each other. They need to heed good science. And I think this board is a part of that. We need to, I was very impressed with the report that Mr. Weaver prepared on the property that is before you. That's what we need here. Good science, public participation, listening to people, and I'm here to help. And if you have any questions for me, please let me know. But I am appalled at how employees in St. Johns County have been treated, especially Trey Alexander Asner. And the county staff, Mike Robertson, actually told him, you can't use the word firebomb in discussing a house that's an historic house that was firebombed. That's how bizarre it got. But their new county commissioners are going to take up office soon, and I still believe in a place called Oakland. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Slavin.
Thank you.
Any other public comments on items not on the agenda? All right. The next item is the approval of the minutes from the August 12th, 2024 meeting.
I move that they be approved
Okay. Second?
with making
Correction.
sure that that one little, correction got moved to Main Street.
And it was done?
Yes,
It's been done. Okay.
make sure, and appreciate receiving the corrected minutes.
All right. So anyone second that motion?
Well, that was
Okay.
messy second.
That was, Dr. Key seconds it. And those comments from the August 12th meeting will be approved and submitted.
I think you need a vote on the motion.
I do. All right, let's take a vote on it, on the moment, on the minutes. Mr. Olson?
I apparently missed that meeting, so I'm not sure how to vote. I can't verify that the minutes are exactly what went on at the meeting. I apologize to
That's
my
okay.
colleagues.
So-
I guess I can abstain.
Abstain, that's correct.
Point of information, Keely never lets anyone abstain whether they've attended or not. She says you've had ample opportunity to review the minutes and you're required to vote on them unless you have a substantive conflict of interest. I learned that painfully.
So, I mean, if our council advises us that that's what needs to happen,
Well, through the chair, the meeting minutes are available, but also, they're on the website,
Mhm.
but they're also, the audio file is available as well. And we do that through our YouTube channel. So say you have the same, instance where you may not attend a meeting, the audio is there from a previous meeting to sort of compare, the minutes.
So you could vote no.
well, I mean.
I don't think it has to be-
I could also look to my colleagues on the board, and if they're all.
Okay.
And then I'll vote based on their confidence in the.
We will bring the vote back to you then at the end. Nick Janahakis, yes. Janet Jordan?
Yes.
Susan Sheldrup?
Yes.
Christine Newman?
Yes.
Dr. Keys?
Yes.
And Mr. Olson?
Yes.
Okay. So Blair Knighting is absent, so we will accept those as corrected. And I will get that to you after I get that signed and get it over to you, okay? All right. Next item is the approval of current agenda. And as a reminder, please state your name prior to speaking, so we could get you for the audio record. We did have two agenda items. One of them has dropped for Mr. Ms. Keely West, and I think that we'll be doing that next time in our December meeting. The agenda item we have is the O'Brien Estate at 99 Kelly Lane in Moultrie, Florida, and we have a presentation followed by public comment for the property.
Ron, do you want me to just introduce myself, or do you want to, I didn't know whether you wanted to.
Well, through the chair, we probably should just get the approval of the current agenda first, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Yeah.
So let's, is there a motion for approval of the current agenda? One item?
Mr. Chair, I wanted to add an item to our agenda. It's a resolution I'm wanting to share with the board as, with the idea that or with my thought that it's a resolution we should act on.
Okay, what is that resolution, Mr. Olson?
Do you want me to unfurl it now or later?
What?
Because I'm
So what's it, you could give us the topic?
Oh, yeah, it concerns input from this board to the county's master plan update.
I think that's a good addition.
I think we could add that to the agenda.
How about we
We
move
have to-
approval of the agenda with the addition of discussion about the role that CRB plays in the comp plan?
What is it, the board?
Something else.
Is that a motion? Or
That-
just a
Yes.
second?
So that's seconded
How are you? I'm caught up in a
Okay.
bunch of meetings. Oh,
by Ms. Newman.
hi, Ed.
Hi, Commissioner.
Hi, thanks.
Commissioner Joseph, welcome.
Part of the.
So the agenda that's gonna, I'm sorry, the agenda item to be added has to do with the CRB plan update, is that correct?
No, the county's comprehensive plan update.
County's comprehensive plan
Resolution
update.
proposed by the different CRB.
All right, so that was seconded, let's vote on adding that agenda item on there. Mr. Olson,
Yes.
Ms. Jordan,
Yes.
Ms. Newman,
Yes.
Ms. Sheldrup,
Yes.
Dr. Keys?
Yes.
And I will also vote yes. So that's a second agenda item we will have. So with that, we'll go to agenda item number 1, which is the O'Brien Estate presentation. Mr. Weaver, Weaver.
So, for the record, I'm Paul L. Weaver III. My address is 5 Milton Street, St. Augustine, Florida. I'm president of Historic Property Associates, which is a county licensed, city and county licensed business here in St. Johns County. And I wanted to give you an update about the designation of, a lot of people call it the Kelly Estate. Probably more accurately, it's the O'Brien Estate. That was the original owner. Would also like to introduce a colleague of mine, John Benoit, who is here. And John has served with me on the City of St. Augustine Historic Architectural Review Board and was the caretaker of this estate.
I haven't been fired yet, is.
Okay. I think, I'm a historian, I think in the past tense, but it's
Yeah.
not to imply that he's not still associated with it.
Yes.
And was very helpful to me, and kind of it all came together working with John that we were able to accomplish this goal. So where we stand now, August 7th, this property went before the State National Register Review Board. Unanimously approved And I would say, I've done a lot, I'll get into that in a minute, but one of the strongest National Register applications I've ever done. I was mentioning to Ryan before the meeting, something maybe for discussion about the approach to the recognition and the preservation of this property. It's going to be, at this point, a private endeavor. And I've worked with the owner on a project in Orlando prior to this, worked on this one, and we're trying to maybe work on some others. If anybody's got any properties, this guy is really interested, and he's interested in preservation. And he's also, to be quite frank, there's a lot of tax value to him by doing what he's doing. So through getting the building listed on the National Register of Historic Places, it will create, under federal law, a historic structure status for the building. And he's going to be able to do a preservation easement on the property, the entire 12 acres, which is going to be with some very modest modifications. I think the easement is with the Land Trust. The Florida Trust for Historic Preservation was another option that was looked at, but for whatever reason, the owner, whose name is Blake Plumley, decided to go with the Florida Land Trust. So the future use is going to be, please, cell phones. The future use is going to be, I would say, kind of a bed and breakfast type thing. They're going to improve, make a dock, and so it will be kind of a motel too. They're going to try and capture people coming along the intercoastal as their guests. But I say maybe a better way to say it's a corporate retreat. And John, John's been involved in some of the planning for this. But basically, I think right now, rather than put a kitchen, which they're going to need for this use, inside the building, there'll be a small addition. But right now, that's it. That is the plan, which is wonderful. I think 12 acres times 4, conceivably you could get 48 units on that property. But that's not going to happen, and I'm very, very excited about that. So the theme of my presentation is patience. When Ryan was saying, oh, Paul, you've been working in this for 30 years. Anyone want to hazard a guess of how long I've been working on this property? Chris Newman.
32 years. More? Less?
It's like Jack Benny, 39 years. I started on this actually in 1984, and I did the county historic property survey, and this building was on the cover of that. And we got teased back and forth, and John was working with the previous owner, I think, a nice guy, but absentee owner. What happened? His wife came down and thought there were ghosts in it and left, and they never came back. So it just sat there. He did around 2000. He did a really good, I would say, restoration of the building. Anyway, I know somebody probably knew Julie Vale. She grew up at Vale Point, rode horses out there, and it was basically in ruinous condition in the late 90s. So Bruce, the previous owner, did come in around 2000 and fix the property up, stabilized it, but it's pretty much sat since that time, really not being used much at all. But my client, Blake, came to me and says, I'm looking for a property, Kelly Mansion. And he, after some tough negotiation, as I said, patience. And John was a little bit, I guess, pessimistic, but John, you got to be patient. I've been working on this for 39 years. But anyway, they closed on it. It came, it came through. It's now under this new ownership, and I was expecting maybe even this week we'll have it listed in the National Register. So a really good success story. So Ryan, if you want to, I'm going to go through. This is what the slideshow that was presented to the State National Register Review Board. But I wanted to just give you a thumbnail sketch of the significance of the property. And this is Chris Newman, this is for you. It's, and I don't want to get outside my field of expertise, but prehistoric. I think an important prehistoric site, but certainly an historic period site. This we believe was the site of La Purísima Concepción de Casapullas, which was the Franciscan mission. So the Franciscan missions, if you will recall, were up in Guale along the East Coast, and as the English encroached on Florida, they gradually came back closer to St. Augustine, and this was one of the ones. And John Hand, the historian, has written about it. I worked with Robin Moore, I worked with Dan Sinclair. They've been doing work out in this vicinity, but we feel that it was likely the site, and we got documentation going back to 1737 on it. We've got maps, the Spanish survey, to I believe 1809, which really shows, the 1809 map shows it pretty much the way it is today, with this 12-acre tract cleared. It's a hardwood hammock, pristine. Think about it. The first saltwater creek south of St. Augustine. On the Spanish land grant, I didn't think much about it at the time, and I think that's in. By the way, did everybody, you got a copy of the National Register nomination? I think I sent kind of a 3D plan, so I hope you were able to go through. Some of what I'm talking about was documenting in that, if you want to go back for reference at any time. But on the Spanish land grant, it says Pinal. And I go, okay, didn't think about it. So you had the 12-acre tract that was about 400 acres in total. What it turns out, and after further research and thinking about it, you had 400 acres of longleaf yellow pine there. And we'll go through the slides, and you'll see some of that, I believe, that wood in this building. Highly significant, and there was Moultrie Creek. What was it called historically? Woodcutters Creek. So there was there, and then down at Pellissier Creek, I'm trying to remember the name, but there was a water-powered sawmill down there during the British period. So the context of all of this is it was a very important area of sylvan resources, particularly for lumber. And I imagine in the clearing of this, by 1809 on that map, we can tell there are plowed fields. It probably, I would think when the Franciscans got there, there was probably an agricultural use as well at that time. But certainly by 1809, we know it was documented. During the O'Brien era, we know they were growing citrus there. And actually, O'Brien, they had a vineyard at Moultrie as well. So it was recreational use, hunting and fishing during that period, but also agricultural and timbering was being done there. So I mentioned Matias Pons, Menorcan owned the property during the second Spanish period, I think from about 1809 throughout the second Spanish period. And then the key owner after that was Henry S. O'Brien, who was a New York real estate developer, sort of typical of that Flagler era visitor and seasonal resident to St. Augustine, came down. He's the one that actually built the Queen Anne style building that we see. And I'll talk a little bit more in detail about the architecture in a minute. But then another, and I always love it when there are multiple areas of significance. You can't lose. So it's associated with the early sort of pioneering development of St. Johns County, this lower Matanzas river area. It's the architectural significance, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail. But then the other one, and I really got a lot of positive feedback from the state on this, and I should have known better. I mean, we've got the Florida School for the Deaf and Blind here, but it was home from 1931 to 1945. It was known as the Dixie Home for the Aged and Infirm Deaf, which was one of the first sort of organizations. It was funded by wealthy deaf people. There was a wealthy deaf architect that was associated with it. It was administered by the deaf. As a matter of fact, you know, Margot Pope, I think it was her grandmother-in-law who was one of the matrons down there. And she and her husband were in the first graduating class from the Florida School for the Deaf and Blind. So that, when I went into it, I was like, you know, architecture and then this Flagler Area Association, but this deaf association, we developed in concert with the state, and it was another thing that we felt was really, really important to bring out. But finally, you know, I always say, does it pass the grandmother test? Could you take your grandmother out to this property, and what would she think? And you would look at it and you say, wow, that is a really impressive building. So, and it was, as I said, it was on the cover of my 1985 Historic Properties Survey of St. Johns County. I thought it was the most architecturally important building in the county then. And I think for its style, certainly it's not more important than the Ponce de Leon Hotel or Casa Monica or the Alcazar, or Flagler Memorial Presbyterian Church, the Career and Hastings buildings. But because of its material, and I got into this debate, and they, Paul, calm down, don't get too. I thought it was certainly of statewide significance, and I think you could make an argument for national significance because of the materials. This we have documented. It was begun in 1882, and the only other poured concrete building that dates that period is the Rada Castle. It took them longer to build this, and there's still a lot of unanswered questions about this. We don't know who the builder was. We don't know who the architect. And I've really gone through. Part of the problem is we don't have newspaper coverage for that period. But we do have, it was picked up in a Jacksonville newspaper when it was started in 1882. And I can't remember exactly when Franklin Smith started Zarata Castle, but it was during that period. And so my question, if this is as early or earlier, it almost brings into question the interpretation of how important was Franklin Smith. Did he have anything to do with this building? I've talked a lot with Charles Tingley and McGuire and I'm trying to remember the building. McGuire and McDonald, thank you. McGuire and McDonald, they were building the Flagler buildings. Could they have done this? But it's such an incredible, the building, and John will talk about this. It's, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the detailing on this, particularly the moldings around the windows and doors, they did it in courses. Can you imagine that? And when they didn't do that level of detail on the Ponce, on the Alcazar, any of those buildings, because it's so labor intensive. So they used terracotta on those buildings, or they used wood. And John and I were kind of sort of thinking, they did this and they said, we're not doing it this way again because it is just so labor intensive. But it's very, very, very high quality architecture. You can see here, you can see the site plan. These are some of the drawings, and I hope if you went through, you could take a look. Let's go to the next slide. So here are just some, and one of the things, character defining feature are these pour lines. They did it about a foot at a time. And guess where they got this? This is how the Spanish poured tabby. Tabby was lime, sand, and oyster shell or coquina poured in a course. But the revolution in building materials was they had Portland cement. But there's no reinforcement anywhere in this building. And they poured it a course at a time, cold pour. So they pour it, let it cure, and do another. And it took, if that 1882 date is accurate, we know that it was occupied in 1885, the message in the bottle. And John can talk a little bit about that too. But Mr. O'Brien's son put a letter in a bottle talking about the construction of the building, dated it, I think, May 1885, and stuck it in a wall cavity. And was it in the 1980s? I think it was. They were doing some sort of fumigation or something like that. And that's when they found the message. So that, we know it was finished by about 1985, but started, based on our documentation we have, in 1882. Okay, go ahead. This is actually the south facade. It's a little bit mislabeled. And then they did the architect, Sarah Ryan, had a drone. And if you could work through, I mean, these are, normally we're looking at it from the ground, but you can see 3 massive chimneys, and they're ashlar scored, which is when they put lines in concrete to make it look like stone. And it was colored, it was painted or kind of an ochre red. This is a little bit later, but similar color. So a lot of that detailing has faded, but these views you'll get from the drone really make you appreciate how complex and detailed this building is. And while we're talking about the roof, I think we've got some historic photos that'll show this, but it was wood shingles originally. And it had little eyebrow dormers. It was really just a classically detailed, down to the, these dormers, detailed Queen Anne style building. So that, the wood roof was removed probably, I think, around the time the second owner got it. And what is it? I want to say turncoat, but it's what is the technical term for the roof material?
Not the standing seam.
No.
The diamond shaped ones?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember, but it was a special metal that is found on the Peñapack, a lot of houses from that period. But in 1917, you can imagine wood roofs probably have a 20 to 30 year life expectancy. So by that time, the teens, it was due for another roof. And so it had a metal roof put on it that stayed in place basically till the renovation by Bruce in 2000. So I guess let's go ahead and go to the next slide. You can see the beautiful jigsaw woodwork here. East Lake Detailing, which is kind of a special school common of architectural and interior design associated with that, particularly with the Queen Anne, but with the Victorian period architecture. Next slide. And this gives you the floor plan. 3 stories, public spaces on the first floor, bedrooms, private spaces on the second, and then the third floor was a service area for servants and for storage. And here, and this is all Heart pine, we believe likely produced locally, milled here. But it's pretty much intact, except, correct me if I'm wrong, John, the flooring here in the main hall, there was some replacement done by Bruce in early 2000, but
Yeah, and we've had to chase, that's where we get our water penetration, tends to be on that elevation in a wind-driven rain, so, we're, after the latest storms, that's where we're always mopping up water.
so significant materials, of course, obviously the woodwork, but all of these walls are, including the interior walls, are poured concrete. So each room is like a cavity. And it really makes it hard, I guess, for particularly repairs and HVAC and all of those things, because the foundation is like stem wall coming up. So you can't penetrate. There's no underground pier system where you could go in. So it's incredible the way they built it. I mean, it's very, very important, but it's not the best for upgrading, retrofitting for HVAC and things like that. Next slide. So these are, yeah, this is the north parlor, this area. I don't know how many, there's about how many fireplaces? Half a dozen or so, I think.
Yeah.
But they're all, all intact. Some of the molding had to be replaced, but it was replaced in kind. Next slide. And you can see just the wonderful detailing. And it's hard to capture the craftsmanship in this, but the joinery, they're like feather joints, where it'll be a piece of wood that's tapered leading into another piece of wood that's tapered. So just incredible materials and incredible craftsmanship went into the building. Next slide.
Actually, if you go back to that one, we assume that little motif is some little nod to the citrus groves that were there, that little floral motif on the newel post. It shows up on a fireplace in the study as well. It's like a soapstone material, and it also shows up on a bed that's remained on property. So I love that little detail.
Yeah, this is a building, of course, the Ponce and those buildings are another scale, but every time I go in this building, I pick up on something I missed
Oh, yeah.
the first time around. So these are the master bedroom upstairs. This is in the turret. Again, that's all the walls, the structural walls, they were all poured concrete in a hexagonal turret. Or excuse me, octagonal. It's octagonal. Next slide. Another view. This is, I think, looking northwest. Next slide. And then this is the least important building. Floor in room, the service entrance. The stair goes up to the Belvedere, to the Widow's Walk, but all heart pine, woodwork, baseboards, doors. This was a service area, and also used for storage. And then this is some shots of the Belvedere. Look at the detailing on the chimneys. It's incredible. Next slide. And there are some historic views. And it's a little bit hard to see, but you can see the diamond shape, the wood shingles and the finials, all of the details from that wood roof. And I don't know, it's really not practical to go back to that, but even here, and this is about 1990, about the time I first saw the building, and they had put the metal roof on at that time. But the finial was still there. So it was a very, very compatible replacement roof that they put it. As you can see, the condition, it was quite distressed at that time. Next slide. And then these are some aerial views. This is the one, Chris Newman Indian Mound. So just very, very conspicuous, self-evident, even historians. You can read a map, you can tell it was an important archaeological site. And this is 1970 Great Map, the soil survey map. Shows the road here. And then you can see county, just for your information, Vale Point Road is still a dedicated road, although it's not maintained. And that was done, I think, put in by Senator McMillan in the 1930s when he was in the legislature because of his support for the deaf and blind and for the school, so that they would have an improved county road to be able to get in and out. So that's part of it. And you can see that 12-acre tract is very conspicuous on the aerial view.
Oh, I had not seen that map that closely. That shows the tie-in, the road that was.
Yeah. No, and it's still there, but it's, the people at Vale Point don't want pass-through traffic.
Yeah.
And so they're the ones that have, I think, opposed any use of it. But it's a dedicated road. It's right there, but it's, I think, just not maintained. Next slide. And then these are, this is the association with the Dixie Home for the Aged and Infirm Deaf. These were the benefactors. These are the people that funded it initially. All of them were deaf, but they came from prominent families. They were successful business people, and they acquired the property, I guess initially in their own names, and then there was certainly a regional, even there was a national program promoting this program. And you think about it, early 19th, it was before Social Security. So aged and infirm deaf had no social safety net. So it was done privately, and they did a national fundraising campaign that mainly focused on the South, because this was the only institution of its type in the South. There were, I think, 6 others altogether, but I think in New England and the Midwest, I can't think of any place outside of those areas. But this was the one that was for the South, and they were fundraising in North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, and South Carolina, Georgia. And so it was sustained for a period until 1945. And one of the reasons I think it eventually ceased to exist is because all of a sudden there was governmental support. And so a private organization like this was, I guess you could say, obsolete. So now, Ryan, I've never had a historic building where there was a film, but there's a film, and let me see if we had a lot of trouble. Okay, this is Dr. Robert C. Fletcher, and he was the chief sort of fundraiser for this. And this is him on site in 1931. And I'm not sure how much we're going to see of this, but this was done for promotional fundraising purposes. Actually, one of the people in the staff of the Bureau of Historic Preservation knows how to sign. And when we were doing the presentation, she was doing a translation. But he's promoting this, I know that much. Interesting enough, his daughter was Louise Fletcher, Nurse Ratched in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And there's a great picture of her, and she grew up, her father and mother were both deaf. Her father, I think, was struck by lightning when he was a small child and lost his hearing that way. But a very intelligent, he was an Episcopal priest, and this was his pet project And so we'll see this. You can see, I think we're looking kind of north in the direction of Moultrie, but you can see the beautiful, still hardwoods there. And there was citrus grown on the property at that time, and I don't know, we'll just watch it for a few minutes. And
Well, I'll tell you, if anybody has any leads, we reached out to FSDB to get them to help us interpret. And what we learned was over generations, sign language changes. And even at FSDB, they didn't have anybody that could interpret this. And so we're now trying to figure out where to explore next, because that's a whole new little interesting storyline.
I think it was Samantha Schmidt. I'll have to talk to her, because either she did it or she got somebody, because she was, as this was being played at the National Register meeting, she was interpreting, explaining what he was saying.
Because that's the second, because the schools have somebody that comes in and helps my wife when they have deaf kids at the elementary school. And we had the same problem. I showed her the film, and I mean, she's only in her 20s, but couldn't understand enough to tell us what he was saying.
Well, for the first 25 years of Flagler College's existence, it was a partner with Gallaudet. So you might want to check with Gallaudet in Washington. And
That sounds
Gallaudet. And locally, you might check with Margaret Finnegan, as in the co-owner of the St. Francis Inn, because Margaret taught deaf education at Flagler for like 40 years.
I'm going to talk to Samantha, because apparently they did.
I'm working on St. George Street. I'll just go over there.
She may be in northern climates, but Patrick, their son, runs the inn.
Yeah.
Patrick.
Mr. Weaver, would this be the early 30s or mid 30s?
Yeah, I think they acquired it in 1931, but yeah, it would be the early 30s. And that I mean, this is great, but if you look in the nomination, I did, okay, let's see what they say here.
Well,
But
they have some shots of the building at the end.
Right, that's what
It's fantastic. You
Yeah.
got to endure a little bit of the interior views, but I had been there for 16 years before Paul found this video, and it helped solve so many mysteries about how there were some appendages on the back that you could see, little knockouts and things in the masonry walls. You knew something tied in there, but we never really had any evidence of what that might have been until the very end of this. So this has just been a fascinating little treat.
In the nomination that you have, I took the film and I did some screenshots of every elevation, so it's there. But these are the patrons. These are the sponsors. All of them deaf, which made it very unique. Okay, here we go. There we go. Yeah. So there it is, early 1930s. And by this time, the metal roof had been placed on it, but the finial's still there.
Big trees come on.
And these are citrus trees. These are probably sour orange, I would guess.
When we first came there was one left, and we didn't really, I moved here from Richmond, Virginia, in very urban area, so I really didn't know anything. And so
Yeah.
we were building the house that
Here you go.
is next door, which is how we came to find them. And one of the roofing crews came over and they said, "Hey, do you mind if we pick those oranges?" I was like, "What do you mean pick the oranges?" And I said, "Yeah, there's an orange tree over there. It's lunch. Do you mind?" I said, "No." So they took their extension ladder and walked over to the property, threw it into the tree. They all climbed it. They came down with 5 gallons.
Yeah, this is what John was talking
Yeah,
about.
right there.
Yeah.
That's so helpful.
Yeah, and that whole rear porch hadn't been taken off. You can see the scarring on the building today. So aside from the historical, this in terms of documenting the building, it was tremendously helpful. Of course, we had I'm trying to remember the photographer, but Meyer, I think, who had gone down there in the late 19th, early 20th century and photographed it. So we had those. Yeah, you could see.
Yeah, that little porch there.
See all this? And can you go back? Just a couple of frames. Yeah, okay, yes, hold that. But this,
Sorry about that. Let me get back here.
yeah, freeze it there. This porch had been removed, and then all of this, the porch back here, that addition, all that's left was the scarring of where it was. So this gave us documentation of what was there, and this little porch here was similar in design to the porches that were found on the main elevation. So just as far as being able to document the present and original appearance and the evolution over time, this film was just incredible. As I said, I've had one with a building that had a historic film. So go ahead, Brian, if you want to just, it'll have some shots, I think. I think this is basically most everything. And John, you know more about these. You can probably identify the rooms better than I can.
Well, that's on the second floor of the bedrooms. And so what I tell people, in my world, we build all kinds of things. And one of the banes of my existence is a pocket door. They just never seem to work right. Well, that room has a pocket door in it that is 150 years old, and that thing works perfect. That jamb has not settled. It has not moved 1/64th of an inch in 150. I kid you not. You can move this pocket door with your fingertip. It's incredible.
So, sorry for interrupting, but you see the names? Each room had a name. That was for promotional. They were marketing to these states. So they named, I can't remember whether, I don't know whether we've got a list of where the people that resided there were from, but that was the marketing. They were marketing to the states, and so they named particular rooms after different states.
That bed is still there.
Florida room.
Amazing. Yeah, it is.
It's a pun.
They left.
It's significant for
Yeah.
your sleeping in.
Well, I
George Washington.
have not endured.
Okay, I think that's it. As I said, we're any day now. If it hasn't been listed, it will be listed in the National Register. So this is what the staff comments were. The areas I mentioned: exploration, settlement, social history, disability history, and the Queen Anne. And they said, I wanted to push a higher level of significance, but it would have held it up, and it was important to get this thing listed for the owner's tax interests as soon as we could. So we left it at that. So that's it. Questions?
Just to, I guess, restate, the occupancy of the structure we're looking at from 1885 to 1931, was it a single family
Yes,
residence?
it was a private home.
And how many owners during that period?
There were three.
Three succeeding owners.
Yeah, and I'm trying, it's in the nomination,
So, yeah, it's in the National Register.
but one of them, it was John Young, who was the owner of the Steel Pier in Atlantic City, New Jersey. He was the one before it was sold to the home for the aged and infirm deaf. So that pattern, it fit sort of the Flagler era, wealthy northerners coming down, having seasonal residents. And the previous owner to him, I'm trying to remember his name, but they were partners. Matter of fact, I think they married sisters or something like that. So it was kind of an incestuous relationship going on. But they were wealthy people from up north.
That's not incestuous.
No.
Two people.
We have lots of brothers.
Well, but you know what, I'm trying to be funny.
Yeah.
So
It's fine.
anyway, so yeah, and then it was till 1945, Dixie Home, and then Mr. Kelly and everybody that's lived in St. Johns County for a long time remembers it as the Kelly Estate. And Mr. Kelly was from North Georgia, basically ran a fishing camp out of it. I think he had trailers and, and this kind of neglected the mansion part of it to the point where, as I said, people like Julie Vale told me going there and it was in ruinous condition. It wasn't occupied. So that's the history of use.
Yeah. If the current owners intend to install HVAC, what methods might they use if it's going to be a B&B or a boat hotel without damaging the structure?
Actually, they've already been able to do that. So back, I came on in 2006 after he had done that substantial renovation. And the main floor of the hallway was shot, just rotten. So they used that as an opportunity to put ductwork in the crawl space. And each room is its own cavern, so they cut out only what they had to get the ductwork in. But once the ductwork went into those areas, they worked their way out, and you can't crawl at all around there. So they were able to do that in the first floor, and then the second and third floor benefited from, it's got a very steep roof, so the attic has room for 2 air handlers. And they did a very good job. They hid, the one little mod that they did to hide some of that is there's a very bulky crown molding in the foyer that is a little bigger than period. And that hides a lot of the electrical improvements and some of the HVAC line sets run through that. But they did a very good job. All of the original moldings and everything are there, or they were very carefully remade. And then at that time, they got the Harpine flooring for the repair from a group in St. Augustine who was floating logs from the St. Johns River and milling Harpine. So they got pretty close to the original looking material.
Yeah, thank you, John. He knows, he's a builder, a very good builder, and knows the ins and outs of this much better than I do.
I was going to ask John or you, what's it look like underneath? I mean, is the whole thing supported? Are there piers, or is it just all?
It's solid stem wall. Each room has solid stem walls. And that extends up through the first floor. And so between rooms, you have solid masonry.
Up to the second floor level.
But do they have a mud slab underneath, or is it just ground?
It might be muddy
It's
this
what?
week.
Dirt,
Dirt?
just dirt and subterranean termite evidence. And so
They won't go through coquina though, or concrete, right? So,
well, they're slowly having fun with the Harpine that's there. And the reality of that building is this time of year, it's a constant moisture pressure. So each one of those masonry cold joints in that wall assembly, when we had that wind-driven rain like we had last week, it just pushes the moisture all the way through the wall assembly. And then when it's making its way down with gravity, every time it runs into a window jam or a door jam, the water just comes through the wood paneling and, comes into the floor. And so that we go and just wipe it up, and then just run the fans and open it. The house performs best when the windows are open, the widow's walk is open, the doors are open, and it can breathe. There's no fiberglass, nothing that twists it away.
Yeah.
I have a question, and I guess I may be jumping ahead, but if there's now, at this point, presumably the National Register nomination will be done. Going forward, there'll be, a huge amount of improvements relative to the use that's being proposed. Well, I guess administratively, will this board be reviewing those, or is that out of the purview of the CRB or to review what actually is about to apparently happen to this structure?
Yeah, anything that requires or triggers a building permit would also require a development review committee permit, which is, a commercial construction plan submittal, or at the very least, a building department permit. And so we would we would definitely review those for significance as far as adverse effect or not to the structure, and we would most likely bring that before the CRB for
And when
review.
will that happen roughly? I mean, is it going to be real soon? Or?
We have not initiated the architectural drawings for those improvements yet. Really been just waiting to make sure that all of the tax benefit of the project gets sort of resolved. And I think that will kind of establish my expectation is that kind of establishes the budget that I get to work with. And so it would be, any plans wouldn't be coming to this group for at least a year. And then we had kicked around a variety of other uses over the last, some years. And part of the due diligence would be archaeology because it is in the conservation zone. And so we know that one of our early, we have budgeted for archaeological due diligence as part of the front end, really to finalize where that building was on the back and where those footprints are. Really, we expect that we're only going to be allowed to replace things that we think were there within reason. So we'll be out there poking that around.
Well, just to follow up, and keep in mind that the owner in doing this preservation easement is surrendering, in effect, review rights to the land trust. And part of what we have done is baseline documentation on the building, identifying the character defining features of it, the poured concrete construction, all of the details associated with the Queen Anne style, the heart pine, all of those things. So nothing is going to happen bad to that building. That's
Okay, but you cited the land trust. I assume the land trust will be reviewing certainly what happens to the grounds and things like that. But
they have review over. It's a 12-acre easement.
okay, so there'll be, I guess, 2 review stops then for review of any adaptive reuse modifications to the property. It'll be this board plus the land trust. Is that my understanding?
Well, the land, they're totally separate reviews.
Well, and I don't understand what would trigger us reviewing it at all, because it's not a county landmark.
No, but if
And
it does,
National Register listing provides absolutely no protection. That's why the easement is so important, because he's giving up development rights in return for a tax credit.
yeah, if it is a significant structure, which it is, we have to go, the land development code requires a review for an adverse effect or not.
But is that going to kick it to us or just staff level?
Yeah, it would most likely kick it to the
You're
CRB
gonna-
for
okay,
review.
Put that in minutes.
And we'd want to, you'd want to come here first for recommendations for any modifications to your plan, if any, and then go to the building department.
Yeah, so if we're coming, so I, my hope is, again, I'm not the owner, but we've been pushing this direction, is to adaptively reuse it as a corporate retreat. I think the allowable use is really more vacation rental than Airbnb in terms of land use. And my expectation in the easement is that we can build back the original kitchen and kind of reinterpret it. But that was originally at the back of the building. It was accessed through like a little vestibule, so we're going to kind of take advantage of the same sort of approach. And that will help us achieve some ADA accessibility into the building. And then that originally had some 2-story elements to it, so we want to reinterpret those at the back. That's why that video is just so helpful, because it just solves all of the mysteries as to how the back worked, because we knew that they had to bring servants with them when they came for the season. But we could never figure out where they would be and how they were interacting. And finally, an architect, as part of this exercise, one of the young ones on Sarah's team, he said, they had to have a second set of stairs somewhere so that the help could go unseen. And so that started solving the mystery. And then we went and we got this, Paul found this video, and sure enough, there it is. They had the servants access a little landing at the top, And somewhere along the way, they took that door out and made it a window, but you knew enough it went somewhere. So we'd like to do that. We'd like to put in a pool as part of that sort of vacation rental experience. A pool bathhouse, so that one of the things that this house lacks is bathrooms. So to help provide that sort of infrastructure, but without doing it in the house, we'd like to have an outside sort of pool house.
Luxury house.
And then like a barn. Yeah, well, there is still some evidence of, we think a privy or cistern, we're not sure, but,
It had an artesian well. It had I guess, a aeration system there, didn't it,
Yeah.
John?
yep.
Because of the sulfur water, they put it there and they stir it up to try and get the stink out of
Get
it.
minerals out of it.
Yeah.
And then some sort of a barn. And so my hope is it really kind of goes back, programmatically as a large single-family estate, a barn for equipment, tractor, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. And then a nice dock with several boats, and maybe a little floating dock. But the idea would be, it would be a very water-oriented, vacation center. So. you want-
And that's the way it was historically.
Yeah.
The major access was up until Senator McMillan put the road in.
Yeah.
Everything came on barge or boat from St. Augustine.
And so, yeah,
Do the current owners have flood insurance?
I imagine they don't. We've actually got great elevation there. And so we're at well over 14 feet. When Matthew hit, we had kind of like a debris line out in the yard, but that was, good 50 to 75 yards away from the house. And quite frankly, that house floods every nor'easter. It just does it from the top. You
It's
understand?
documented going back to 1920 as having nor'easter damage there too, by the way.
Yeah, it's our biggest building system quandary is how do we keep the bulk of the water out, but still allow it to breathe. And so it's finding just the right product that does that.
And can the windows be certified to Cat 3 or?
No, I mean, these windows are original. They still have the weights. I've screwed them shut because we have vandals and just problems, but they work. When we take back the screws out, I'd say 80% of the windows have the weights. They all work. We've had, broken glass. Again, my big thing, again, is occupying these buildings. Bad things happen when nobody's watching. So we've had broken glass. But any sort of retrofitting to provide hurricane resiliency there would impact the preservation of the building.
Once it gets that certified historic structure status, it's going to fall under the Florida Building Code for historic buildings. So there's going to be flexibility there, and hopefully,
The good thing is if we've had a storm blow out a window, it just does the same thing that every other storm does. It just saturates the whole building with water. But it's designed to dry. There's nothing in there that holds moisture, like a fiberglass insulation or drywall. It's all plaster, lath, and hardpine. So, not that it's not having its whole, that floor area that Paul was referring to, which, it'd be nice to have a new roof on it and dry it in. So that's what we're
that's
patiently waiting for.
Yeah.
Is a new roof.
stabilization, that's the first thing.
Yeah.
So
What is the action today, Ben?
Informational.
this is
I think it's
informational.
Informative only.
It's already gonna be listed on register.
Great. So thank you, Mr. Weaver. Thank you, John, what was your last name?
Benoit.
Benoit.
Yeah, I really appreciate John. He's been on site for, almost 20 years, so he really knows the ins and outs better than I do.
I have a quick question about that. I noticed in the proposal that it was previously determined eligible for the National Register, but apparently not. Why?
I don't know, I don't know where that came from. We did, I don't know that there was ever a preliminary site information questionnaire done. When I did the survey in 1985, I did a list of buildings I thought were eligible. But a determination of eligibility is a formal federal or state action. So I'm not aware of it ever being officially. You know, it would be like a 106 review, Chris, or something like that. And I don't know that there were ever been any activity where they generated anything like that. So it has to be some sort of action, a federal action involving federal funds or permits or something like that for a formal determination of eligibility been undertaken. So I don't know where that comes from.
Yeah, well, I would just tell you, Bruce, the prior owner, his sister was very involved in one of my contacts. She really wanted to put it on the National Register and had several false starts doing it. And quite frankly, that's why Paul was so helpful. It's, you know, when you look at it, you hear it, it sounds like a slam dunk, but you still got to do all the work. And she just never could do that. So there may be her false attempts, you know, 2006 through 2015. You know, she was trying to do something, but could never really get enough inertia to get anything done.
And I
I had
was,
questions in 1997 when I worked for the shipboats office, the regional office in North Central Florida, which is when I took the original photographs, going back up there then. There was conversation with people from New York that were going to come in and use rehab tax credits back on there at that point. And that may have been enough to just identify it and start the process. I don't know whether
Yeah.
Tallahassee.
I'm not aware of anything ever
That's all.
being initiated. So.
Yeah, that's all those miles. So, I worked for the shipboat for 9 years.
Anything else?
It's great, thank
Oh, we
you.
appreciate it.
Thanks for all you did, it's great.
Thank you.
Be here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
nice 5-minute presentation. We went on for about an hour.
Hey, everybody, thank you.
Yeah, do you need me for anything?
Your
or-
resolution, good to see you.
Thank you.
Sorry. No, it's okay.
All right.
I'm gonna go out with John.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a nice
Thank
day.
you.
We'll be in touch. Yeah.
So the added agenda item was proposed by Mr. Olson. Mr. Olson, let's, I'll turn it over to you. Let's,
Okay, thank you. I believe that this board should provide input into the county's update of the comprehensive plan. That process is underway at the county. There's been a lot of effort to get citizen input from groups and individual citizens. And it seemed appropriate that this board consider making a resolution to provide input as a board, because we have a really important role as a board in advising the Board of County Commissioners on matters related to our mission, cultural and historic resources of the county. I left this till the last minute, so I have an extremely quickly done resolution just for us to look at and certainly mark up. I'm not sure I hit all the things that should be hit in a simple resolution, so I thought it would just mainly generate discussion. I don't know what the deadline is for county input into the comprehensive plan. I know there's been, it's well underway, the input period. So if there's a deadline, we may need to do more work today on a resolution. But anyway, I'll pass this around. Let's see. We have enough. And I have, I think I sent enough down, Nick, so you can send one across.
yeah.
Sorry. Nick, can you put for you, please?
Yeah.
No.
All right, here now. Does everyone have one? Again, a very quick piece of work, but I thought, well, it's better to start with something than
Well-
nothing.
So we have an audio record. We should go ahead and read this, if that's okay. All
Okay.
right, the proposed resolution reads, whereas the Cultural Resources Review Board of St. Johns County is charged with advising the St. Johns County Board of Commissioners on matters related to the identification, preservation, and protection of the county's cultural and historic resources. Whereas the county is currently seeking input from citizens and groups relative to the update of the county's comprehensive plan. Whereas, given the rapid growth of the county, it is especially important to assure that unique cultural and historic assets are protected as the county continues to develop. This can only be assured with the provisions of an adequate administrative structure and staffing. Now be it resolved, the Cultural Resources Review Board urges reinstatement of a dedicated historic preservation officer position to provide and assure qualified administrative support for this important component of the county's comprehensive plan. So I would make two corrections in the
Yeah.
third, whereas we want to make that continues instead of continue. And then at the next sentence, this can only be assured, BE. So let's make that correction. And comments.
I'll stick my neck out as usual. Did anybody go to either of the presentations over in the county administration building in the last few days? It was an afternoon and a late afternoon one where you, no offense to you staff, I'm not blaming you guys, but where you got to put little circles on your favorite topics, which is like the least scientific way to figure out what's important. And the reason I say that is one of those graphics was sent to each of us. Now, I freely admit I skewed it because most people I found out had no idea that we even existed. And if you pull up Cultural Resources Review Board on the county website, it doesn't say what we're supposed to do at all. So I took a whole bunch of my dots and plugged them all in on there. So, you know, again, I'm pretty sure somebody before me had done the same thing, so it looked like we had some representation on that. But we have, whereas when it was the Historic Preservation Board 25 years ago, and yes, I had different color hair, so did Chris, but we've both been around when it was established. It was more visible in the county. I'm not suggesting that we have the right or responsibility to determine what type of staff, but I did pull up the old job description and the current one, and no offense to Megan, but they downgraded the position by 2 steps. I'm sure you're going to do well, and it'll go back up and elevate it as well. But we seem to be at a time where we need to reestablish the importance of the body. Through the county commission, through more visibility, I would also argue we need to be doing interpretation, public education, because as you can tell from all this, most of us don't, I mean, again, I meant to be the dinosaur. I've been around for all of these kinds of things, but most of you have not. And if you have not, there are going to be a whole lot of other people, hundreds of thousands, that have not. St. Johns County is the fastest growing county. Most people did not come here. They do not understand the importance of the history here. They certainly couldn't tell you it's the first county in Florida, which was the entire peninsula at the time. Okay? They couldn't tell you that we have the nation's oldest city, which will be 460 years old next year. They probably don't know that we're having an America 250 celebration. The nation's. I say that, speaking to groups, they have no idea what I'm talking about, okay? So it might be a good time to reestablish that, find out the time frame on the comp plan stuff, and what we can do to really make sure that this body is included as legitimately as some of the other citizen boards are.
Can you reach out to Inspire and get an interview with this group with them?
Sure, yeah, you
Why
can do
don't
that.
you do that? I don't think I have to get a board approval for that, do I?
No, I mean, we can invite anybody that you want to speak with the group.
So who is inspired?
Yeah, what's that?
They're in charge of the comprehensive plan, and they're
The
supposed to be the ones.
consultant?
Yes, they're supposed to be the ones interviewing people. Maybe they need an interview with this team of people.
Sure,
If you have any issues or problems doing that, you can get back to me.
sure.
And in regards to this is only my opinion, If you can wait a month for this, that'd be better, but it's up to you guys.
I would,
We could wait a month, but our next meeting's in 2 months.
Oh,
When is the deadline?
we could have a special meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe a special meeting.
Okay.
We need to know the comp plan deadline, which would help us know when we should try to meet.
I'm not really sure. It seems like because of the hurricanes and things, it's been changing a little. But I'm not sure what you want out of this resolution. I'm not sure if the current board is up for it. I don't know. You can try it before the board changes, or you can wait till the board changes.
Which is after,
November 19th is the first day of the new board.
And is that
Should have a
after
meeting
the
the
right before
deadline?
Thanksgiving.
We should have a meeting.
Is that after the deadline for the comp plan?
No, I don't think the final comp plan can be voted on until January, so I think you still, I don't know, maybe Ryan could, if you could just check when a good date for them to meet.
Sure.
And then, at least they can give their input, because it's definitely an angle that's, I don't think it's been interviewed yet. They've interviewed developers, they've interviewed us, they have not interviewed a cultural segment. And if you have a problem, you can let me know, so
Absolutely.
that I'll be trying,
Friday, November
Yep.
22nd.
okay?
I think the process has brought forth issues that are more closely than just being considered tangential to this board. Preservation of agricultural land is a big thing that's been mentioned large by a number of people that obviously relates to the character and the economy of our county. So it's not just sort of a narrow idea of, where do we fit into the plan? It's a broad thing that I think would broadly interest and come under the attention of this board.
I'd like to also add that when the first cultural resource manager that, was hired, it was a full-time position, and as it went forward, he even had an additional person
Yep.
to help with the historic structures, buildings. So there were actually 2 staff members at one point. And now we're down to, I assume, we're part-time?
I'm full-time.
Oh, you are?
Except you have multiple other duties.
With
CRB's not even in her job description.
In regards to that, let's just take one day at a time, and let's get you guys involved in Inspire, and if she's with you too. And Ryan, it's a good team of people that you can see how it goes and get up to speed, which I'm sure you're already up to speed,
Mhm.
because it's a great job. So
So who will reach out to Inspire? Would that be you, Ryan?
Yeah,
And then
I'll
you'll
start that
get in
process.
contact with the group
Mhm.
to see if we could have maybe we could have
you have to notice it, right?
we do have to notice it, right? And then, does it have to be an in-person meeting, or could we do it over, let's find out.
Yeah, we can
Because it
do
would
a
be a
meeting
special
here
meeting.
again, and they can come here and
Or you can
present.
do part of hybrid, whoever doesn't want to drive
But,
down.
I mean, tell them they don't want to do the dot thing. They
No.
they need to discuss how important cultural is, and then have the map there where they can show different areas that are important. And if you need me there, let me know.
Okay,
The 2 planners that were there, or 3 from the county, clearly really nice, but had no clue, and they freely told me that.
Well, and then
That's
when it's
another
open to the
thing.
public like that, I hate to say it, but it's the same people I've seen at all the meetings. And they're putting dots over and over, the same people, so.
I promise I only showed.
We're not getting new, I mean, I know we're on recording now, but we're not getting the new people, and you guys are new. If you have not done the dots, let's get you guys.
And the first staff person was there for 11 years, by the way. And then it's been like, get on its LinkedIn page.
I promise, I'm not the administrator.
No, I know,
Yeah.
I know.
But I sort of I have to echo that. I've been on this board a long time also, and I remember, there's a lot of effort that needs to be covered, including, staff did grant applications for
They still are.
activities relative to this board. and a lot of agenda preparation and more proactive identification of historic issues and resources, cultural. So I think this board is expected to be proactive. It's written into our charter in the land development code. But it's hard for this board to be proactive if we don't have that individual that I think many of us remember we had at the outset. So, yeah. Well, good.
So do we want to turn this into a motion so it finds its way into the minutes?
Well, I don't,
Well, the Inspire first initial meeting would be a
Yeah.
motion. And does someone want to make that motion?
Public comment?
Okay.
First of all, I want to thank you for Mr. Olson for raising, Dr. Olson for raising this issue. I think the resolution could be fine-tuned a little more. Let's say how many FTE, and let's say what kind of budget. And let's address the structural, functional problem with having cultural resources subsumed under the rubric of the road management department. I've always had a problem with that ever since I went to St. Augustine in 1999. And Carl Halbert, the archaeologist, actually reported to Mark Allen Knight, who was the head of planning and zoning. And they put pressures on poor Carl to take a dive and to put certain applications higher in the priorities as far as getting their archaeology examined. It is a sinister idea that cultural resources should be under the thumb of growth management. We've got to liberate cultural resources from growth management. That kind of thinking is just passé. It needs to be a separate department, a Department of Cultural Resources, reporting to the commission and the county administrator, to where no retaliation will ever take place again. I like how Abraham Lincoln handled the Emancipation Proclamation. He had a draft, he shared it with his cabinet, and everybody knew that come January 1 of 1863, if certain things didn't happen, he was going to sign it, and he did. And one of my favorite paintings in the U.S. Capitol, I used to pass it all the time, taking press releases from Teddy Kennedy's office and Senate press galleries, is that wonderful painting of Lincoln with his cabinet when he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. So I suggest incorporating in your minutes the draft resolution and this discussion, and let the world know, let everybody in the county commission know, and the new commissioners especially, as they get up to speak, that this board wants to say something. And let's work on it that way. Let's not hide our light under a bushel basket again, because what you have to say needs to be heard. It needs to be heard by the people of St. Johns County. It needs to be heard by the archaeological and historic preservation communities, the building, and I think everybody's on the same page. And we know what happened, and it happened again and again and again. How many cultural resources coordinators do we have to run off and ruin their careers before St. Johns County gets a spinal and testicular implant? So that's my thought. And I think we need to look at how many FTE, maybe at least 3 to begin with. Maybe suggest an amount in the budget, because the county is now working on the budget for the next fiscal year. And I know Commissioner Dean was very interested in some of the issues about the landfill. Also, this board needs to be meeting, as I've said, for how long?
3 minutes.
2 years, 3 years? This board needs to meet the
We're
auditorium.
at 3 minutes, Mr.
Just like land. See me after class if you have any questions. Thank you, guys. No.
All right.
I would like to make a motion that, based on our conversation this afternoon, that we do request through our staff to participate in the Inspire, we just went, process with the consultants in a timely manner, so that our input can be appropriately included into the comp plan process, and that if we need to set a special meeting that we are open to considering doing that within the next month, whatever, depending upon the comp plan process, that we don't have to be limited by our normal meeting schedule.
Second,
Okay, let's vote. Mr. Olson,
Yes.
Ms. Jordan,
yes.
Ms. Newman,
Yes.
Ms. Sheldrup,
Yes.
Dr. Keys?
Yes.
And yes for me also, Nick Janahakis. Do we want to amend that to incorporate the draft resolution at this point? I would say no.
Not at this time.
I don't think we need to necessarily. I'm just
Yeah.
pleased that it generated the actions that were taken. So,
Now, the date of the special meeting or even the Inspire presentation or discussion is important. Do we want to discuss what date we're looking at? Because I know there's a lot of different things happening. There's the election,
Do we know when,
there's Tallahassee.
we don't know the county's comp plan process, so.
And if they can't do it in person, at least they can maybe do it on.
Sure, we can do a virtual meeting.
But if you can let us know as quickly as possible.
Mhm.
Well, you have to advertise it, correct? As a
It has to be
public
advertised,
meeting,
yes.
so,
Yeah.
okay.
But
2
but
weeks?
They don't
Is
want a
that-
presentation, they want a
Participate in the process.
workshop.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can workshop it. Yeah, depending on their schedule, I mean, it depends on when they're available. You
And
know,
give
Well,
them-
considering
give
their
them the
consultants
amount of
getting
time
paid
they
and we're
need.
not.
So send them a bill.
yeah.
I'll send them a bill for my hourly rate when they're done.
No, it's-
So are you looking for, wait a minute, an hour workshop to just talk about the county's comp plan and modifications under the EAR process?
2 hours.
It's dialogue. This is not them coming in with a canned presentation.
Right.
Mhm.
I did sit through multiples of those. This is where we really get to,
Right, getting feedback from the CR.
Yes.
Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
So that we get included, as the other departments have, into comp plan.
That's fair, don't you think? They would do that.
If it's a duly noted meeting, it has to be advertised for how long? What's the period? What's the minimum period? Is it 2 weeks? Is it more than that?
As quickly as we can get an advertisement out, I mean,
But what's the legal standard for meeting notice? Is it 7?
it's, yeah, 7 business
Okay.
days.
All right.
typically, yeah.
And it would, in my opinion, it would be nice to have a hybrid meeting in case, since it is such short notice,
Yeah.
if we can come in and have it a physical, and then if we're out of town or something, if we can come in on the, you know, Zoom or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, but it is the CRB's intent to have it before the next meeting in December? Is that-
Correct.
That's your intent? Okay.
Correct. Let me want to space
But
myself.
part of that's driven by when the comp plan,
Yeah, I don't know, their deadline has changed, obviously, but I don't know what that is.
yeah, well, that's what I'm just saying is, I think we're trying to be amenable to their schedule.
Mhm.
But
In today's meeting minutes, can we have a link to the draft comp plan? So
I don't think we have one yet, do we?
That I'm not sure of, I
I think
haven't
they are
worked
working on
closely
it
with
right now, so that's why it's really important to get.
Yeah, I don't think it's out yet. I don't think
Well,
it's
we don't
complete.
want it out yet,
Yeah.
actually.
Right, we want-
We're trying to get to the draft
What's being included in the draft, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so let's
Maybe
do
the
this.
old one, a link to the old one?
Yeah, and
So
it-
you can see
Yeah, that's probably,
the format.
And then just a recommendation, it's good to come up with a list of modifications to the existing comp plan elements.
The fact too.
Have a list what you want something, because you have the existing comp plan, and how do you want it to look now, come up with a list of recommended changes.
Brian, that's excellent.
so maybe staff can give us some other comp plans from other communities. That's a cultural resource.
Just answer my question in my head.
I'm always easier to react than act, so. It's more productive.
Do we have enough and with a vote to kind of make sure it's all captured in the minutes for the meeting?
Yeah, I think the
Okay.
intent's there, that you have a board consensus that you want to,
Right.
have a special meeting for feedback with our comprehensive plan amendment.
Any kind of milestone dates that we want to avoid or get in before or after?
Well, the only
Anybody
thing
thinking
that-
of the 19th or after the 19th or before?
of November.
November.
The only thing I would note is the weekly date, because it's still hurricane season, but all of the state grants have been postponed and with a tentative, real wiggly reschedule of November 20th and 21st. Saying that quietly because I don't want any more storms to come and throw it off for the third time.
Is that for special categories
Yeah.
or cultural?
No, special cats.
Hopefully we
But
can
that's
talk
not
to them before the end of
remotely official.
October. I mean,
Yeah,
So let's advertise it right away and make sure that we can do it within or after 7 days and set something up with Inspire. This is a consultant
that would
group,
be,
yes,
and
Yeah.
they're based out of,
Gainesville?
okay, so they're state-based, okay. That's
oh,
fine.
good.
All right,
That far.
great.
I think bringing up the ag lands and some of the other.
We'd expect it to be a 1-hour meeting at least.
Yeah, it might be good to, I'm thinking, to have, whatever day, have it at 4 PM. Because that seems to be a time of day that captures us, our pattern.
Yeah, but that kind of sets it and limits it to an hour because the building closes at 5.
4:30.
4:30.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
4:30, so we have to, that's why we kind of pushed this meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm thinking airport authority.
Yeah.
Yeah,
1:30?
3 o'clock?
well, no, if it is, as long as it's not Monday the 24th, I have an airport authority meeting.
Okay. We'll make sure it's not.
Just so you guys know, the website that links Inspire to the county's comp plan states that November 2024 to February 2025 are the adoption hearings. Is that old information? Sorry, I'm channeling you, not like.
But even if it's old, the only thing it would have gotten is pushed out, right?
Yeah,
So
it's not gonna be condensed, it's just,
I mean, there's only one more board meeting after tomorrow, November
Okay.
5th, and then the new board is November 19th, so.
okay. Okay. Yeah, I just didn't want to turn around and say, oh, you already missed your window. Okay.
Okay. Any board member reports?
You got mine, live and in color.
You have yours.
The staff have them electronically and they can send them to everybody. Or,
Any highlights you want to touch on,
um,
please, briefly?
we have a lot of statewide, and that's what I tend to look, is we have a lot of historic buildings that took some huge hits from the 2 hurricanes. And that is in here, anybody that likes mid-century modern resources, they lost a bunch in Sarasota, literally wiped out Siesta Key. Sweet little place north of Tampa, their little village hall, little Victorian building that survived 3 hurricanes. We're not sure what the status of it is, and I can't find any current photographs. At Cedar Key, if you're not familiar with the pencil capital of the United States, we didn't use the number 2 pencil. Cedar Key has had lots of flooding over the last decade. They have a terrific mayor. UF has gone in and done sea level rise diagrams so that you can watch their water rise. They're doing everything they can for resilience. I'm not sure what the status is on that one. And I'm part of this disaster team, but we can't get to a lot of the places yet because they've got to get people power and water back. So that's sort of the bad news. The good news is we are still working on the Florida Black History Museum stuff. And yes, believe it or not, we are still working on the America 250. We'll start thinking about what we want to do. Educationally, next year's a perfect opportunity to start taking that stuff in, do public education, even if it's electronic.
Okay.
That's my 2 cents.
Any other items from the board? Any staff reports? Any additional?
We do have some.
Uh-huh.
Just a quick update, the St. Johns County is assisting the Lincolnville Museum with needed upgrades to their facility, which may include parking lot, surfacing, drainage, security elements, with a $250,000 grant from the Department of State. So we're basically a pass-through agency for that, so we're working with the Lincolnville Museum for that. The next would be Hastings High School rehab. There's a proposal. Staff has had preliminary conversations with the school board, who now own it's back in school board ownership. And we've yet to receive any scope or drawings of the proposed renovations. But this project would fall under the exemption based on regulations involving the permitting associated with school board projects. They're basically exempt from St. Johns County review. So the historic review would fall under DHR review. And so,
Excuse me, there will be a review by SHPO?
correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And also the grant is a federal grant, so, it has to go to the SHPO anyways for those updates. And so we will be reviewed by the state.
How much money are they getting?
I think it's a $7 million total
Some-
grant. Yeah. Federal grant.
Hastings Library, any update on the groundbreaking for that?
Friday,
Oh.
It's this Friday?
this Friday.
What time?
10 o'clock.
It's high enough it didn't flood, and the library didn't flood.
It's
So
good.
they'll do one.
It's really in.
What time is it?
Huh?
What time is Scramble?
10 o'clock.
You?
On site, presumably.
Well,
Bring your canoe.
But that-
Yeah.
The renovation on the Main Street is up to the north building now, up against the,
Oh, we're up to 415 and 422.
it's impressive, it really is, to see all that renovation.
Hastings.
And I was glad to see the design of the library adheres to the original lines of the building.
Yeah.
Good thing.
So next, we had the upcoming DHR grant webinars. So apparently that's going to be postponed to November for the small matching grants as well.
They haven't said,
Okay,
and what I gave you was just internal.
yeah. So
It's
they're,
in writing, so technically it's a
We'll get
public
it.
document to share, but it's not final.
yeah. So staff will get updates from the state on whenever those webinars occur. So we'll be attending those for our two in-house grants that we've submitted so far, which is the A1A South Historic Structure Survey and the Hastings Historic Document Digitization.
And those are both small matching.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next, we had a pre-application on the Hastings Potato Growers Association building. They're on a potential new private school. There was some proposed interior remodeling for the new use, so there would most likely have to be a cultural resource management plan for that. Again, this was a pre-application, so if there's actually an application, they would have to come before the CRRB as well if it's an adverse effect, depending on their scope of that resource, because that is, significant structure.
This is on Main Street, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a
With
potato
the-
growers.
Yeah, okay.
And just language, we never remodel a historic building
Renovation,
or rehabilitation.
rehabilitation.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That saves all the good stuff.
Yeah. Next, the Main Street Pizza on Main Street proposed an awning over the outside sitting area, which I'm sure they've already talked with you about. So we recommended that they talk to you about that on their design.
And we've seen their design and their plans, and we're perfectly okay with it.
Okay.
They gave Mike a letter from us.
Okay, good. Same thing, we received a confirmation letter for a Dunkin' Donuts on Main Street in Hastings. So I just wanted you to be aware of that.
I have rumors, but.
Is that what the- is that what the-
confirmed, so-
Yeah.
Party.
So this was just a confirmation letter on the county's requirements for that piece of property specifically. So it's basically a pre-application, if you will.
I guess I have a question for whomever carried Dunkin' Donuts. When the chain businesses come in, you have to look for sign control because they will want to put up their typical commercial strip signage. And there are good examples of chains that have been persuaded to comply with sign
Do you,
standards.
do you have rights on Main Street to say what they can actually bring in? Or do you have review rights?
Yeah, well, before she gets out of the room.
Yeah.
Commissioner.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I am like running out of time.
Just 1 minute. Main Street has been working for a year trying to get an overlay established with design standards just to prevent and control some of this encroaching development. And it's not been kickstarted yet by growth management staff. We've done outside committee work and met with them, and nobody has been tasked or assigned with pushing that forward. So it would be beneficial to Hastings community and the county to have staff assigned to help us get it moved forward rather quickly, because we are making magnificent changes and people are noticing. And when they notice, they invest and spend big bucks, and we don't have any standards to control the signage, other than, and there's not a review process.
That's a Keely question, right?
I think so.
Yeah, currently, right now, there is no overlay, there's a Hastings overlay, but not a specific to
Right,
signage requirement.
It's not got any protections. It's a copy paste from the old LDC,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no specific protections for historic structures and or special architectural designs. And that was one of the issues with the library that the community got up in arms with, because we had to say, no, it doesn't fit. And we need a design standard map to make it fit within the commercial district.
Would you bring it to the board, or is this something that,
Well, that is mostly, well, obviously it's at the staff level, but it's also an ownership level. So if we're trying to create a actual Hastings historic district, that would have to be started as a grassroots movement to the staff, and then we can work on it from there. But I think there has to,
like, bring it to commissioner reports, or?
certainly it could be, brought up by the commissioners and the commission itself. If that's the intent of the board, to create an actual district out of it, using, maps that are available of all the existing historic structures in the area.
We have the surveys current as of 2021. We've got, I've developed myself a blueprint template, but staff hasn't been directed to help us.
See, I don't know if I'm allowed to do that. Sarah's your district?
Right.
Sarah, does she have to bring this up?
I don't know. I've got a meeting trying to set up with her to discuss it further.
Yeah, we would need, a directive from the Board of County Commissioners or administrator.
Can we
Staff
recommend?
is directed.
Can we recommend?
So do I bring it up in county commissioner? Except it's not my district, so I don't know if that's successful, or,
Yeah, certainly you could bring it up in commissioner reports.
And I could be at the meeting tomorrow and stand up and talk about it. Public comment.
can you do like a third public comment on it?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
And we could individually chime in.
yes.
We're not taking a policy position as board.
Well, whoever's there should do their 3 minutes.
Right. I'll bring up the issue.
That's a great idea.
But we need, as I say, we've been making fabulous movements forward, and we just need protections right now.
And there are all kinds of overlay districts in Florida, so this is not that complicated.
No, I'm trying to be
I mean,
political here.
I know.
Because,
The substance won't be as hard as the
yeah,
process.
and if I bring it up, that'll be a no. You-
Let's all not get.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
Sally's gonna take the lead. We can all chime into all the commissioners
Right.
so that everybody's got equal information.
And there's a couple Florida cases Keely can advise you on, but basically, as long as you're St. Augustine or St. Johns County, I think you have a total right to tell chain stores that they can't use their chain store logos. There was a case from one of the minor
you
keys,
give me direction.
and that case basically said,
I mean,
it's not historic, so the Florida Supreme
it needs
Court
to be,
said, we can't.
property
regulate this.
ownership
But
driven.
it was not. I think
Scenario.
it was Marathon or someplace like that.
Okay, 'cause I can't tell when.
Historic here.
Yeah,
Check with Keely.
yeah, because we don't have any
If it's
requirements.
a historic district, is there any rules that has to be developed, right? It's a rule for historic districts, or?
There has to be a district overlay requirement in our land development code.
Keely here, because that's a good key.
Yeah, we've been asked that before, and her response is, it has to start from the property owners and come to us as an issue.
Okay,
Language.
you're gonna be there.
In front of high school, Boy Scout.
That's on Wanshack Answer, so there was one. Has to start with the property owners. Jesus, wait.
Okay, any additional staff reports?
Number 19 is the.
Let's see what we got here. Oh yeah, we did see, we reviewed recently, today even, a change of use application for the Zora Neale Hurston House on West King. There's a proposed first floor to be used as a nonprofit museum, art gallery, and the second floor will become rental units for, to financially support the downstairs exhibits. So that's what was proposed for that house. And
It's currently a house?
currently, it's in residential use, and there's a proposed change of use to a commercial.
Who owns it?
It's called Phoenix Rising. I think it's a nonprofit group. I'm not sure. It's probably a private group that owns it.
Well, considering that they're the CRA in West Augustine and St. Augustine, I hope that as a courtesy, the county will coordinate with them so that everybody's making informed decisions.
I forgot, I've heard that, about that group, that's a good group, I just can't remember what it was.
Yeah. So that concludes our
Staff
reports.
reports. All right, so we wanted to acknowledge that there was a Boy Scout in the group that was here to see public action in use.
Poor thing.
What was that? Why don't you, can you stand up and give us your name so you find yourself in the public record too?
I'm Harrison Warren. I'm a Life Scout, which is one rank before Eagle, and this is my last merit badge, which I had to come to a civil meeting or some like meeting of sorts,
Great.
and this is my last badge before my Eagle rank, and then I have my project, and then I'm done. So
Nice. Congratulations.
Well, thanks for selecting us. And we hope we were entertaining today. Thank you. All right.
Stan.
It is now 3:24, and we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.